guys, welcome to today's video. In today's video, we'll look into a scenario in which the United States and China goes to war. And this is mostly going to be an Asian war, but I'm going to use America declaring war because, it would be World War III if China declared war because of NATO. So yeah, we're going to have it be America be the aggressor. Why not? And we'll see some countries join right away. Because, of their shared dislike. And there's one country that's an ally, but not an ally. So yeah. And there's one that we won't be messing with. Unlike in the last video where China was in a war, because it was funny. Too humorous. And the first countries to join include Canada, France, Britain. But some countries in Europe, Eastern Europe specifically, won't join because of the threat of Russia. Although America is basically sending weapons everywhere and fighting a war. Quickly, Taiwan joins, but why not? Japan joins. South Korea joins. At first, the war is not really spread out. But then this happens. North Korea joins. With everybody's Navy getting ready, the U.S. Navy is arriving in Asia as right now, let's say, in the scenario. And they meet with the Japanese and Korean navies. This is basically where America brings its Navy to. Its Navy for the war that they're about to start fighting. Although at first, China probably does have the upper hand. Mostly because not all of America's troops are able to get into South Korea at this time. Korea will either fully fall or some will be left, depends. That's where they set up their military occupation, the American. And the British are arriving and the French. But, keep in mind, guys, their navy is, this. But that's not important. Is it, guys? No. See? Not important. But I forgot one major thing. Australia. And Australia is a strong nation that I forgot to include. I think they're the 15th or 16th strongest nation. Maybe the 26th, who knows. But yeah. Australia is a very strong nation. Not strong like China, strong, or North Korea. Fair, strong. Although North Korea isn't strong, but it could be strong. Well, let's just say Hong Kong and Macau falls. With the Chinese Navy moving the American Navy back around South Korea, encircling the nation, and Taiwan, because the war is just new and not enough troops are there to secure the front. So basically, it becomes a zone of conflict quickly. And by quick, I mean China's in the upper hand at the beginning. And somehow manage to pull off a successful amphibious landing and they go up Taiwan's coast. And then they make an amphibious landing in South Korea. As North Korean troops move down, they manage to take Pyongyang. But a stalemate gets established until eventually it falls. With the U.S. managing to get South Korea to join, now they're trying to get New Zealand to join. Which they succeed in doing. They succeed in getting New Zealand to join. Russia's just staying neutral because they're distracted in Ukraine, so they can't really help China. And China knows it's just them basically on the team, so they know they're in a bit of trouble. Thailand so far hasn't joined yet, but it's our major American ally. With the Philippines entering the war, well, that means fighting is now in the South China Sea. Which is a big deal for China with this area falling back. Their now goal is to cut off the Strait of Malacca, which they somehow end up going into, Vietnam's territorial water. And they cut off the Strait of Malacca, which is a big deal for world trade. And then they continue and cut off here, because why not? They end up, well, knocking out an Indonesian boat. And Malaysia just doesn't like this, so, like, yeah. Kind of ends up making the war expand, which nobody was expecting. And Papua New Guinea just joins because why not? Because I ended up making them join, even though they probably wouldn't. And I don't think Indonesia is an American ally, I wouldn't say. With them using the Navy just because China can't be down here, can they? Logistically, I see this as a possibility. But I'm starting to think maybe this is unrealistic, but you know. China taking off the Strait of Malacca isn't unrealistic. China just somehow managing to hold off in this area with their vessels is feasible, I would say. But not for long. But not really like ones you would say. But Vietnam's starting to get irritated by the fact that China is in its territorial water and not leaving, even though they requested it multiple times. They're starting to be heading towards a path of war, it seems like. As they start trying to take over all the South China Sea, with Indonesia being at war with them, so is Malaysia. China manages to secure naval dominance over this area. But Thailand is asked to join the war. Because why not? And they establish their navy and they meet up with the Indonesian Americans and whoever else's navy is there. And I don't even think China could really have their navy like this because they're going to be running out of resources soon, but yeah. With a landing in Malaysia and half of this island in Indonesia being taken over. And this part of this area being taken over. With China now, at this point, has fully taken over Vietnam's coast. Vietnam is irritated, to which a war breaks out in the region. With China calling in what would help them if they had to. Which, yeah. They're being forced into a war. Just like you guys know. And Vietnam sustains a lot of losses. They lose this part. They lose land here and here. But they manage to hold off. And China moving its attack into Thailand and managing to take the capital might have been a mistake. But Thailand manages to stay safe in the south. With the American navies and the British navies and the Australian navies and the French navies are fully mobilized along with the Japanese. So now China is forced to withdraw troops from this region. Why would they have to? Because they're losing naval dominance. China is in a bad position. They're starting to seek help from Pakistan, which Pakistan doesn't want to give because this will be a war and they'll probably lose their occupation over Kashmir. As you can see, their occupation. With Vietnam still standing, even though it's just one tiny piece of land. With this being good news, is they are able to establish more hold. Yep, more hold. Their zone of control increases. With Malaysia not even moving a navy. Weird. With Thailand managing to take its lands back and Vietnam taking a big chunk left, but being stuck because of Chinese strength. This becomes the front line and stays this way for a while, with both nations trying to get allies, both struggling, and both still getting resources from a lot of their allies, but not really help. With this much of Laos and Cambodia falling in Myanmar, and China saying we will completely collapse your economy by forcing you to pay back all of your debt you have to us unless you join on our side, which they do. But nobody really, the Americans are like, don't really worry about this for some reason, as they had a card up their head. With India planning a way to overtake Pakistan as they take Karachi first. That's a phase 1 as they move to their second phase, which is to take Islamabad. Well, this area collapses. And now their fourth one is to take over Kashmir, or their occupied territories, by China and Pakistan. But that's as far as they can really advance. With the fall of Pakistan happening, China tries an invasion over here of India. They manage to take a bit of land, but not too much, because it's all mountains. It's hard for them to fight each other with all mountains. With India dominating this front, and I mean dominating, as they managed to get this far in a few months, with them not using their navy. Weird. It makes sense now that there's no reason to use it. And they start invading Myanmar, which is geographically almost impossible to invade, but so, yeah, be it. And so, as you can tell, the war in the Pacific is coming to an end. Why am I calling it the war in the Pacific? That sounds like World War II, because it basically is a war in the Pacific. And as you can tell, it quickly becomes the demise. With China seeing South Korea and Taiwan liberated, with it seeming like this being really the end of the war. With an invasion over here being carried out in here. Along with this area, with control being made over more of the coast. But as you can tell, they can't take too much territory because they can't hold it because of all the people. But they took this land and they got repelled in the south. Because, like, theoretically, this is almost impossible to hold this much land. Especially in China. But there's a strategy behind this, so they were distracted there by Beijing when they make their invasion of North Korea. They manage to get to Manchukuo, and they encircle Beijing, and yeah. With Beijing falling in the first battle of Beijing, surprisingly. China not really losing. They haven't really lost and they haven't really won. With Tibet and Xinjiang now declaring their independence, which China couldn't stop for some reason. But with it becoming seen that China should just come to peace, as the people don't want to be continued this. And yeah, in the occupied lands up there, democracy is established. So they agreed on a peace treaty. Vietnam and a lot of Cambodia going to Thailand. With a lot of the red nations not getting land, but yeah. With Taiwan getting this, in this newly formed Republic of China is what it formed. That's what Japan got. And India formed something that is probably going to destroy the comments, but yeah. They form India, Greater India, the greatest Greater India. Hopefully that does. But like, as you can tell, insecurity is very strong in the region, with China just weak. Probably gonna fall apart into a civil war. It already has 4 Chinas, basically. And China does claim that's illegitimate, this treaty and everything, but they're told that you lost. So sad. Well, and now they look like the bad guy. You know, the bad guy won. So yeah, that's all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out, and not until you subscribe. Bye, guys!